Yo, what is up gamers, it's Sebastian here, coming to a new video going over the Tri-Brigade deck that I have played recently in the UK extravaganza. There's a giant card which went awfully because I played a bad list, and then the main event which went well because I decided to cut every card for traps instead. So today I'm going to go for some very intricate details that I noticed whilst playing this deck for the short period of time that I have. Some of these details are stuff like interactions on the deck only one involving cards like Tri-Brigade, Revolt, stuff like that. So stick around and I will go over some very interesting details, and I'll also explain why I prefer the Sue version to other versions. So here's going to be one of the situations that had come up to me in the main event and why I ended up getting top 16 of the main event. And this is something that I had confirmed with the judge during the time, just to make sure that I wasn't accidentally cheating my opponent. So this is 100% judge approved legal, and it involves deck of only one, the Tri-Brigade Revolt, and the monsters in your grave. Now there's a lot of detail to go into this interaction right here. As you can imagine, this is probably kind of cursed already. But to answer your question, yes, one, this is a legal activation. In this game state, with no monsters on the board, you can activate Revolt. The reason why is because you could summon a... that's the wrong example, but you could summon Nerfle and a Fractal, and then immediately link summon into a Revolt. This is all legal and possible. So Tri-Brigade Revolt is a legal activation here. Let's say your board state was... Let's say you had a kit on field. If you have a kit on field, then you could not Revolt. Hang on, let's think of a good way to show you this. Let's say this is the state. If this is the game state, you cannot Tri-Brigade Revolt here, because even though like you could summon the Ring Beast, Beast Warrior and go into Revolt, there is a beast on the field, and Revolt is a beast monster. So due to deck only one, you cannot summon Revolt whilst kit is on the field. So Revolt in this situation is an illegal activation, because you are unable to attempt to, because the only Tri-Brigade monster you can summon is a beast. Like the only link monster you can summon is a beast, but you cannot summon a beast whilst kit is on the field under deck only one. However, we get to go into a little bit more detail here, though, because at that point you might think, oh well, that's pretty obvious, right? Now let me show you where it gets a bit cursed. In this empty game state situation, you might be thinking, what happens? Nothing on the board. What happens if we attempt to summon a Ringed Beast, a Beast Warrior, and a Beast? What would happen here? Due to the effect of their Community 1, we can no longer link summon, because we can't make a Beast Warrior, because Fractal is on the board, and the only Tri-Brigade link free is Rugal, which is a Beast Warrior. So you might be thinking, oh well, then you just can't do this. You have to summon this and make Revolt, right? Well, the answer is actually no. Even though like you can activate Revolt to summon these two to make Revolt, when you go to resolve Revolt, you can decide to actually just summon the Shureg, Fractal, and the kit. Which then, in this situation, once Revolt resolves, you are forced to link summon, which you are unable to do. Because of that, the monsters will just stay on the field, and that's how this interaction goes. And this is actually how I attacked someone for a game. I was in a situation where my opponent was on 4-9 life points, and I was on like no cards. I was going to attack, and they had gone Hokuero, then Torrential. So I then flip up Revolt to summon Shureg, Fractal, Kit, and then because I summoned these three, I could not link summon, and they stayed on the field, meaning I could attack for 4-9 damage, and that was game. Now, we get... So that's like makes him a bit weird. There are some ruling precedents that kind of support this. This is like nothing's set in stone, obviously, because it is Konami, it is Yu-Gi-Oh! They do like to mess things up, like Kaiju Slumber. So they do sometimes just decide to mess up rulings for no reason, so it is uncertain until we get an actual database ruling. But going off of precedents on other cards such as Gear Chains versus Stygian Dirge and Bujinki Harashima versus Degroni 1, it should work like this. So basically, under Degroni 1, Revolt can just be returned from the different dimension with no downsides, because you can still attack with the monsters you summon off Revolt. So it's basically just returned from the different dimension with no downside. Another thing to mention is that in this game state, you could also summon Shrek, Fractal Kit, and Nerfal. And you might be wondering, what happens here? Well, Nerfal and Shrek are both winged beasts. You can still summon both. Now, the reason why is because this is a simultaneous summon. Because it is a simultaneous summon, they all summon at the same time. It's all legal. What would happen is once you finish summoning, you then immediately send either Nerfal or Shrek to the grave. Another thing to point out, let's say you were to try to summon Shrek, Nerfal, and Kit. Nerfal or Shrek would be immediately sent to the grave, and then you would have to attempt to summon Ferrojeet, which you can't, so they would stay on the field. Like if you try to, like you could summon Rugal here, but Nerfal would be sent to the grave. If you were to summon Shrek, Fractal, and Nerfal, then Nerfal would be sent to the grave because it conflicts with Shrek, and then you'd be forced to summon. You would have to summon Ferrojeet here. But if you summon like Shrek, Fractal, Kit, these all stay on the field, and then you can't link summon because summoning Rugal here would conflict with Degroni 1. So they all stay on the field and you just attack for game. So basically there's some like rules with Revolt. There's some rules to determine whether or not Revolt is a legal activation. When you activate Revolt, you have to think, is the Tri-Brigade monster I'm summoning from my extra deck legal given what monsters I have on the field? Like if I have a Fractal on the field, I cannot activate Revolt if the only link monster I can summon is Rugal. Let's say you have Kit on the field. Like I showed this earlier. If you have Kit on the field and you only have 2 Tri-Brigade monsters in your grave, or like 2 monsters in your grave, you cannot activate Revolt here because you cannot make Ferrojeet, which is the only monster you can make here. And that's like basically when Revolt is illegal. But if you can legally try to summon a Tri-Brigade monster from the extra deck, then Revolt is a legal activation. And then on resolution of Revolt, you send anything that conflicts to the grave, and then you try to link summon with what's left. In this situation, there's nothing left, so you link summon nothing. And that's it for the first interaction that I will show you today. Okay, so this next interaction is going to be how to OTK on the Degroni 1, which you might be wondering, well, Degroni 1 seems kind of counterintuitive in Tri-Brigade, because all the monsters are very similar types. However, you might find that it's actually very convenient to play around. It's like not too difficult to play around Degroni 1 with your Tri-Brigade engine. So in this instance, we can normal summon Karaz. We can choose to banish 3 monsters here. And then, because we have a winged beast and a beast on the field, all we have to do is just summon a Rugal. And then we can go Rugal Karaz into an access code. Access code to gain 3000, and then this is game. And it's just that easy to OTK on the Degroni 1. Granted, you do need some sort of setup first. But like, if you have Degroni 1 face up, then you probably do have a board from turn 1. It could also just be like, let's assume like you've done the standard board from turn 1 and you are able to keep your board because of Degroni 1. So in this instance, let's say you have Karaz again. Let's say you have Kit, because like you're always Nerfal searching Kit. In this instance, you would summon Kit. you would. It depends on how many mats that producer have and whether or not you can go for game. But in this instance, like banish kit, Fractal Nervo doesn't really matter. You would summon Haze Falga, and then like sometimes this plus access code is game. If it's not, you just simply link these into access code, and then that's like definitely game, because this gains 4,000 for our producer, and then this is 2,400 at minimum, which is also game. And now this is all under Decamoni 1 as well. Same thing, if this is Nerfal instead, you just summon Vogel here instead of Haze Falga. So it's like not that hard to play around Decamoni 1, and it's like quite convenient to kill under Decamoni 1, which means you get to play like one of the best floodgates in the format whilst not being too impeded by it. For this next interaction, I'm going to talk to you about how, you know, the link monsters you can summon with the Tri-Brigade Fs. I'm going to show you something. Let's say in this situation, you activate Revolt. The only monster you can summon here is either Ferrichi or Vogel. This is because the only monsters you can summon of Revolt to link summon are the Karaz, Fractal, and Fractal, which then you can at best make a Vogel. The reason why is because this double Dragon Lords was summoned from the extra deck using the effect of a Tri-Brigade monster. And because of that, it wasn't properly summoned. If a monster was not properly summoned from the extra deck, then it cannot be summoned with the effect of Revolt, or Monster Reborn, etc. So in this game state, you can either only summon Ferrigite or a Vogel with Revolt. You cannot summon this to link summon with, which is super relevant to keep in mind to make sure that you have like enough legal materials. Or like for example, you summon Ferrigite, and then like you try to link these into Vogel, and then like you might want to Revolt summon Ferrigite and then some other monsters to make Shurag and then get the Ferrigite F. Unfortunately, you cannot do that because the Ferrigite wasn't link summoned. However, if you link summon the Ferrigite and then this is a mess, but if you link summon the Ferrigite properly and then like made Vogel or whatever, and then you wanted to Revolt, if this was properly link summoned, then you can. The main thing to keep in mind is which monsters you've link summoned and which monsters you haven't link summoned, which is like super important to keep track of. But like most of the time, like okay, you can link summon this technically, but most of the time this won't be link summoned. Most of the time, this won't have been link summoned, and then sometimes like you don't link summon the Ferrigite, sometimes you don't summon the Shurag. Also, one thing to know: if you summon Shurag off Revolt, then it has been link summoned because this link summons the monster. So you can summon a Shurag back off of Revolt if you had used Revolt to make the first one, which is something like in the earlier situation where I mentioned that I Revolted on the Decamoni 1. I summoned back a Shurag that I had made with Revolt because it was properly link summoned first. Also, another thing to know, obviously, if you have like two monsters on the field and you try to link into a Ferrigite, and then they Solemn Strike to summon a Ferrigite, your Revolt can only summon the Fractal Karaz, and it cannot summon Ferrigite because Strike negates the summon, so Ferrigite wasn't properly summoned. And that's an obvious one, but I figured I might as well mention it whilst we were talking about monsters properly summoned versus Revolt. So something you may have noticed about the deck that I topped with was I used the Zoodiac cards. And you might be thinking, well, why would I play the Zoodiac cards over just playing, like, let's say, more traps and playing it pure, or playing the Lyrilusc combo and going for a Simorgh combo? To answer your question first, with the Lyrilusc cards, I think they suck. I think the Lyrilusc cards are very lame. I think you're lame if you play it. And Statue is a very boring win condition. You can't just rely on Floodgates to win your games. Floodgates, and like if you're just playing the Statue, you're basically playing boneless Dracos. Anyways, and that's why I think the Lyrilusc stuff sucks. If you play it pure, it doesn't have as much power. I think the Zoodiac cards give you a higher ceiling, and also gives you like better interactions when playing through in your opponent's interactions. Most importantly, it's very easy to dump the materials you need in the grave with the Zoodiac cards, because they all just go bish bosh bish boom. It's like a furry orgy just happening in your graveyard, which then you just tell them to go away by banishing them to summon your Shuraig. So it makes it a lot easier to summon Shuraig to link into Ferrogy, and that gives you that additional searches, and it helps you with your follow-up. And this in general just gets more mats in the grave. And then like on top of like the bonus, on top of the bonus mats you get by playing the Zoo cards, you also have like cool combos you can do with that. I've showed it in my deck profile, but I can show it again. So the basic rat combo is just Rapier plus literally any Tri-Brigade monster. It could be Coerce, which doesn't do anything. So we do Rat, we send Ram, we then overlay Chak, detach from Chak, summon Ram, overlay into Trident, detach from Trident, pop Ram, Ram F, summon Chak, then you overlay into Mortar, and then you detach from Trident, attach to Chak, and then you use Chak F to summon Trident. In this situation, another good thing about the Zoo engine, they will most likely Nibiru you here, especially if it's game 1. If they think you're playing pure Zoo, they will assume you will link 3 into a Megaclops, and then that makes their Nibiru dead. But in this situation, we're not going to do that. But basically, it's a very good tell if your opponent has Nib. If your opponent has Nib, they would Nib here, most likely. So it's very safe to assume that if they don't Nib here, they just don't have Nib. So you're safe to like carry on with your combo. So then we link 2 into a Ferrogy. And then we use the Ferrogy F to summon the Tri-Brigade from our hand. And then we're going to use the Tri-Brigade F to banish 4. So we summon a link 4, this link 4 being Shuraig. And then we go link 1, 2, 3, and 4 into an Appaloosa. And then you can activate Shuraig F to add a beast, ring beast, or beast warrior monster equal to the number of the Tri types you have banished. So we have 4, meaning we can add a level 4 or lower. So we can add like Fractal, for example, to send Kit, send Nerval, and then have like Kit for next turn. Or we could search for a Sue for next turn, but like this is like basically what you can do, and you're guaranteed a Tri-Brigade monster for next turn with a 4 material Appaloosa off of only a 2-card combo, that being any Tri-Brigade monster and Rat. So in this situation, you could have 3 more cards in your hand. That could be traps, and then you have an Appaloosa for 4 plus like 3 traps, for example. If you open Kit instead of Coerce, or if you open Nerval instead of Coerce, then you could, in this situation, either use only 2 monsters and summon a double Dragon Lord instead, to which then you can make a 3 material Appaloosa, use Kit to send Nerval, and then Nerval to add a Tri-Brigade for follow-up next turn. Or you could go and make a Shuraig anyways, and then use the Shuraig, Ferrogy, and Kit to make an Appaloosa. And then you can use Shuraig to search for Riptail, which is a level 4, and Kit to send Nerval, which would add a, let's say Kit for next turn. And then you can attach your Riptail to your Trident that you searched off Shuraig. So these are just like some basic rat combos you can do. So like, as you can see here, that it took full advantage of us just dumping a bunch of Zoodiac monsters to the grave. Which is like, this is why I much prefer the Zoo version. For just like being able to have access to like, you have more you have more freedom to do what you want. when you play the sewer engine, because you just have like more materials in the grave that lets you like just do things. Anyways, that'll be it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, if you like the sort of tips and tricks, I showed you the cheats to how to play Tri-Brigade. Please don't ban me, Konami, it was just a joke. Then be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe down below. And also, if you might have noticed, there's a chat right below me, because I recorded this live in front of my awesome Twitch viewers. The reason why I did this was solely so I could point out that I have a Twitch channel that you should all subscribe to and at least follow. I stream every Wednesday at 6 PM BST, every Sunday at 1 PM BST when I do remote dual locals, and then I also do random days, like today at the time of recording is a Tuesday. But until next time, I will see you gamers later.